Welcome to Executive Learning Networks. I'm Jill Robinson, and sitting here with John Mize, President and CEO of State Volunteer Mutual Insurance Company. We are back in our series of going over our 5 or 6 value set, and John has graciously agreed to be part of this video Zoom call. He's been president and CEO and part of State Volunteer Mutual Insurance Company for 7 or 8 years. Prior to that, he spent 24 years at Towers Watson as managing director and has been in this world of insurance for quite some time. They've been members of Executive Learning Network since 2005, so there's a rich 15-year history with his organization, even prior to John joining, being part of our group. Today, John has chosen to speak on our value of integrity, and he's got a couple of stories to share from his place of work. So, John, take it away, and thank you again for being with us.
Well, thanks, Jill. First, I have to admit that anytime I see somebody tell me about their integrity, it makes me want to put my hand over my wallet. So. Gives me a little pause talking about integrity, but at the same time, it's one of State Volunteer's core values, and it certainly makes sense to talk about that. If you look up the definition of integrity, there's really 2 main definitions. One has to do with just the consistency, the solidity of something that is, a bridge. Does a bridge have integrity? Will it withstand a load? But probably the more important is the definition that has to do with consistent adherence to some moral code. And State Volunteer's definition of integrity, we have the word integrity as one of our values, but it's do the right thing always. And so ours aligns more with the second definition. We're fortunate in business that we don't always have. It's not every day that you come up with something that's not pretty black and white, but it does happen occasionally where you're conflicted. And we always ask ourselves, our leadership team gets together, we talk about things, and we simply ask, what's the right thing to do? And there are a couple of recent examples around COVID to talk about. Early on, we were hit pretty hard. We have a large investment portfolio, and COVID was not kind on the stock market or the bond market early on. We also had challenges with our policyholders and their practices. We didn't know whether we could face a surge in malpractice claims associated with that. So there was some uncertainty. At the same time, our policyholders, particularly those that have businesses that are heavily elective, they were sidelined, and we knew that we needed to help them. So, and it was the right thing to do. So we were pretty aggressive about trying to respond to that, in spite of the fact that financially there was some uncertainty. We called a board meeting, and it was unanimous. Everybody knew that in this situation where it was a little dicey, that we should lean toward the side of helping the policyholders and just stick with that. It was just more in line with our values than the other path. Another that I'm guessing a lot of people here probably experienced was the Paycheck Protection Program. When that came out, we heard about it, investigated. We talked to bankers, attorneys, and everyone told us pretty universally, pretty much every company we know of that is like State Volunteer is applying for this. So we knew that we qualified, but at the same time we were a little bit conflicted. We want to be good stewards of the resources. That's another one of our values, is stewardship. And we know our policyholders are struggling financially. We thought if we had access to these funds, we should certainly take advantage of it and then use that to pass savings on to our policyholders. That felt consistent with our mission. On the other hand, we felt like the funds really should go to companies that truly needed it, that didn't have the other resources that a state volunteer has to be able to get through. We would love to see small companies get these funds, be able to continue to employ their employees, continue those paychecks flowing, because we thought that would be better for the community on the whole. And so I was very thankful the morning that I got a email from our CFO who clarified that there had been additional guidance that came out that specified that companies like State Volunteer that have access to other resources should not apply for the PPP loan. So we had a little bit of a sigh of relief there because it eliminated the conflict, and we're able to withdraw the loan and feel good about that decision. Feel like we met our obligations on both sides.
Yeah.
Personally, I guess I've been pretty blessed in life. When I don't face a whole lot of challenges with integrity. I guess I've been pretty conservative financially, and I've always been blessed with employment. So I've never really had to make hard decisions about, what's right and wrong. It felt pretty good about making decisions that are in line with what I would feel comfortable telling with my kids about or my parents about, and not be ashamed of that. My parents have always trusted me when I was growing up, and when somebody trusts you, you tend to return it by being trustworthy. So I learned that early on.
Good. John, I love that, when you talked about your board and your senior leadership team getting together, that y'all pulled out your values and sat down and said, okay, listen, we've got a decision to make about, funds, and how does this stack up with, our core values. And, I just think that that's very thoughtful about the leadership team that's there. So really a wonderful stories to share.
When I joined the company, our value statement was actually a series of sentences that were good, and they did capture how we operated, but they were hard to use day in and day out. And so I guess it was probably 4 years ago, we took steps to modernize our value statements and our words, and we got together and started with the leadership team, then with the board, and we attempted to capture what are the core, how do we make decisions? What are the things the traits that we love about our company? And it kind of pulled those up out of who we are and how we act. And we use those words, or we captured that in just 6 words. And we do use them as a compass, day in and day out, for decision making. It's valuable.
Well, it's completely evident, especially in time of crisis, right? I mean, not just for every day, but in times of crisis, you pull them out and you're like, hey, how do we make these decisions? And you really wanted the money to go to the companies that really needed it. So I think that's very commendable. Now, during this, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it goes back, it's not only integrity, it's stewardship and service. One of our values is service to our policyholders, to our community, to our coworkers. And so that all aligned. So.
Now, as we wrap up, what are 1 or 2 tips or ideas or just, sentiments that you want to share with the other members of Executive Learning Networks during this time?
This is a hard time, and probably what I would encourage you to do, not that you haven't already been doing it, but just watch out for other people, stay in touch, communicate a lot with your friends and your family and your coworkers. And some people handle it a little bit harder than others. And this is a time where we need to come together and be supportive and help each other get through it. We will get through it, but it's not easy. And we just need to recognize that, give each other a little bit of grace and be kind.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, John. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill. It's a pleasure. We appreciate your team and everything that you do.